So, what does it take to be a better defensive lineman? Well, in order to answer that question, we need to know what the purpose of a defensive lineman is. In American football, the defense's goal is to prevent the offense from scoring points, preferably in as short amount of time as possible. This can be done through several methods: preventing a first down, intercepting a pass, or recovering a loose ball. For the standard schemes of football, like 4-3, 3-4, and over-under, the defensive lineman will be positioned somewhere between the tackles of the offensive line. Where the defensive lineman is in relationship to the offensive lineman nearest to him when the ball is snapped is called his technique. If a defensive lineman is at the outside shoulder of an offensive tackle, he is at a 5 technique. If he's head on the tackle, he's a 4, and if he is on the outside shoulder of the guard, he's a 3 tech, and so on. This brings us to the first point: positioning. Anyone watching carefully in a professional football game will notice that as one defensive lineman moves from one tech to another, his fellow defensive lineman will typically also move. And that helps us to understand the purpose of an individual tech. Let's say that in a given high school football game, we have 4 defensive linemen in a given scheme against the spread. And for the purpose of this video, we will treat the defensive ends as defensive linemen. So the strong side, the side of the field that is larger in width, the strong side end would line up as a 5 tech on the outside shoulder of the tackle, and the strong side tackle will line up as a 3 tech. The nose guard or weak side tackle will line up as a 1 or a shade tech, and the weak side end as a mirror 5 tech. Going over every read and responsibility of each lineman is something I do not have time for today, but we can cover the standards at least. Now that we see where each lineman is positioned, let's evaluate each's given responsibility. The strong side end is responsible for the C gap and with that, protecting the outside containment of the line. The strong side tackle is responsible for controlling the B gap and pinching down on the A gap if necessary. The weak side tackle is responsible for weak side A gap and pressing down into the B gap if necessary. And the weak side end is responsible for the backside C. Let's take a more individual look at the strong side tackle and how his positioning helps him accomplish his tasks. From his positioning on the outside shoulder of the guard, the defensive tackle has leverage off the snap on the guard in regards to the B gap. By leverage, I'm talking about his ability to engage half of the offensive lineman, destabilizing him, or with momentum, moving in, pinching the offensive lineman into the A gap. Here are some ways to improve positioning in your play. If you are playing as a 5 tech, make sure to align with your nose at the point where the offensive tackle's shoulder pads ends. This will allow you faster reach with your inside hand to the tackle's shoulder, and put you in a position to control him. If you are lining up as a 4 tech, make sure you are head up on the tackle, but far enough from him that you can finish your first step before contact. As a 3 tech, you should align your nose with the midpoint of the guard's outside shoulder. This will give you an advantage in pinching the guard and closing the A gap, and controlling presence in the B gap. A 2 tech should align with the same methodology as the 4 tech, and a 2I should align with the same methodology as a 3 tech, but on the inside shoulder. A 1 tech should align so that his nose is equivalent to where the helmet ends of the center. He should also try to align as close to the center as reasonable, in order to take advantage of the center's distraction of snapping the ball. However, the nose guard should be aware that he needs to stay lower than he would normally have to as a tackle, because of how centers normally fire out. A 0 tech should line up head on to the center and as close as reasonable. Please be aware that alignments of a defensive lineman can and should be altered on particular schemes, with run-stopping defenses filling more gaps with defensive linemen rather than linebackers. If you have any questions or suggestions for further videos, please leave a comment in the box below.